have to hear everything about the committee that you were just in.
I just was questioning Secretary Hegseth. The most concerning part is he refused to say that he would abide by the federal court's order. I mean, as you know, right now, Secretary Hegseth has said that the Marines should be there in Los Angeles. I disagree. Governor Newsom disagrees. Mayor Bass disagrees. But it's not for us to decide in this country. The courts decide. So I said, okay, Secretary Hegseth, we have a disagreement about the rule of law and what applies, but will you agree to abide by the federal court's decision? So let me ask you another matter. Senator Baldwin asked you about the legal authority for the Marines in my state. I disagree with you. I thought not only do I not want Marines in Iran, I don't want them in California. But I don't want to get a gotcha. You know, they said, what provision? Your administration since then has filed in the federal district court. You're arguing that the Marines should be allowed to defend federal property. I disagree with you. That's your argument. Here's where I hope we can agree. Whatever the federal district court decides, will you abide by it?
Well, this is a pending situation.
So will you agree, though, that it's not my legal view, it's not your legal view that makes the decision in America. It's the federal judiciary. If the federal court in California and the San Francisco district judge has orders a preliminary injunction, will you agree to abide by the federal courts?
What I will tell you is my job right now is to ensure the troops that we have in Los Angeles are capable of supporting law enforcement in there.
Sir, I agree with that, but will you...
And we know we have the constitutional and
even,
statutory authority.
That's fine, but
can you
just assure us that you'll abide by the decisions of the courts?
We've always looked at the decisions of the courts.
Well, the vice president has said that he doesn't believe that the courts should be respected in military matters.
Well, this is not my lane, but we also recognize that the way in which the judiciary has expanded its powers.
But can you just give a simple? Okay, let me ask you this:
clear.
two simple questions. You got 30 seconds. I'm not trying to trick you. I think it would assure the American people. Because it shouldn't be Ro Khanna's view of the Constitution, and it shouldn't be Secretary Hegseth's. It should be the Supreme Court and the federal courts. Can you assure the American people on two things? You will respect any Supreme Court decision on this matter about whether the Marines are constitutional, and you will respect the district courts when they rule before the Supreme Court rules.
What I can say is we should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country.
So you're not willing to say you would respect those decisions?
What I'm saying is local district judges shouldn't make foreign policy for the United States.
Gentleman's time's expired.
That's very, very concerning. Governor Newsom just tweeted it out. I tweeted it at J.D. Vance saying, will you please clarify that this administration plans to abide by the federal courts?
So what does that mean then if the administration isn't abiding by the courts when it comes to military actions? Is it just a free-for-all? Donald Trump can send troops wherever he pleases?
Well, if they defy the federal court, if they actually do, and then if they defy the United States Supreme Court, then we have a full-out constitutional crisis. So I'm hoping that they're not going to take it that far. But this is not normal. I mean, you don't have the sitting Secretary of Defense saying, well, I don't know if I can abide by a federal court decision.
And when it comes to everything happening in California right now, because we saw it was small localized protests, that's all it was, triggered this action of Donald Trump sending in the National Guard against Gavin Newsom's wishes. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
I have not, and historically we haven't seen it. I mean, we haven't seen it where the people of the city haven't called for the Marines. The governor hasn't called for the Marines. What happened to federalism? I mean, if the Marines were needed, you would think the mayor or the governor would call for it. That's what happened in 1992 with the LA riots, where the mayor requested President Bush Sr. to call in the Marines and the National Guard. In this case, they're clearly not wanted, and you have something that's very, very unconstitutional.
And when it comes to, so this Saturday, there are over 1,800 demonstrations planned nationwide.
Yeah, with Indivisible. I love their spirit. You know, there's a study that shows that if 3.5% of the population gets active and has an uprising in a peaceful way, that's what helps support democracy. And, you know, that's what's going on this weekend.
Yes. I will say, just given the escalation we've seen over the past week with Donald Trump, with just sending in the National Guard into California, also in D.C., he said protesters in D.C. will be met with heavy force, whatever that means. Do you have concerns going into the weekend that we may see further escalations?
I do have concerns. If you look at the order, it doesn't say specifically to LA. It says anywhere that there are protests that Donald Trump thinks have gotten out of hand. The National Guard can be sent. The Marines can be sent. This is inching towards a state with way too much unconstitutional action with the military. I mean, it's chilling.
Yeah. For the people going out and showing up this weekend, though, do you have advice for them? Because we do still need people to show up. This shouldn't scare people away from exercising their First Amendment right to protest.
They're patriots. This country is strong. This country is stronger than any one administration. In our DNA is activism and democracy. Yes. What I would say, though, is be very safe, be peaceful. Don't get into yelling matches. Don't get into shouting matches. Keep your distance from anyone in law enforcement. Don't get in their way. In the civil rights movement, people wore suit and ties to the protest because they wanted to show that they were completely respectful of the rule of law and law enforcement. They were making a moral point. So let's keep the moral high ground as we're out there, and that also will ensure their safety. But I think the only way we stand up for these values is by being out there.
And I do want to ask, as a progressive,
Yes.
I am also a progressive. I got into politics when Bernie Sanders ran in 2016. I know, like yourself and many other representatives are carrying on those values, wanting to see not just maintaining the rights we have, but actual progress.
Right.
How do we continue that fight when it seems like right now it's just defending every civil rights win of the past century?
We need to keep focused on making sure that we aren't compromising our values. We're standing up for voting rights. We're standing up for reproductive rights. We're not throwing the trans community under the bus because we believe that in this country, everyone has dignity. Everyone has the right to pursue happiness how they see it. That's freedom. But at the same time, we also need to be offering an economic vision. We need a new economic vision. So many people don't have a living wage. They can't afford rent. They can't afford health care. They can't afford their prescription drugs. They can't afford childcare. And then you got $5 trillion companies in my district, $14 trillion. How are we going to build new economic jobs in the world of AI and technology around this country? How are we going to make sure everyone has a living wage? How are we going to support unions? How are we going to make sure that we have free public college and free trade schools in this country and have health care guaranteed from the day a person is born with Medicare for all? These are the values, and I think if we say there's a better way, in the wealthiest country in the world, everyone can have economic security, everyone can have economic independence, then whether you are white or black, straight or gay, I think you can be part of this vision, because that's what Bernie was about. It was about a better America. But what I do want is that we build a broad coalition of all the voices who are against Donald Trump's policies. And we highlight that even in his own base, people are upset against his attacks on banning all international students, on exploding the deficits, on making tariffs on every country and ally, that even people like Elon Musk, who supported him, poured $250 million on him, think his economics are nonsense. And I think having that conversation out there will erode his base to allow a progressive movement to emerge so we win back the House and we win back the presidency.
100%. And of course, the Democrats have a minority right now. There is only so much you can get done in these next 2 years until we win back the House. In that time, what can the people be doing to help you do your jobs, help their communities, and help defend democracy?
Help get the facts out. We need people out there organizing with facts, that these cuts in this big bill are going to mean 13 million people lose their health care, Medicaid cuts, that they're going to lose food assistance at a time people are struggling. Children are going to lose food assistance, that they're going to have tax breaks to the billionaires in my district who don't need them, that we are having a war on universities in this country, that we're having a war on science in this country, that we're canceling medical research, canceling Alzheimer's research. We need people to take the facts to their neighbors, to their churches, to their workplaces, to their communities, because I believe the American people didn't vote for this. They don't want this. And that if we get the facts out, we will see people stop this extreme agenda.
And I think that's a great point, too, because just in my experience, not only in making political content online, but also when I was an organizer back in Michigan, the people whose minds you might change are your loved ones and your friends by just
Exactly.
having those conversations about the facts. Because if they just go online, they're siloed into those echo chambers. They're reading things about this big, beautiful bill that, no, they're just kicking illegals off Medicaid. No, these are things that are going to affect all of us, and you need to have those conversations with your loved ones.
Totally agree. And you'll be surprised. I mean, I had my favorite high school teacher I met after 30 years, and it turned out he was a Trump supporter. So you will be surprised who would voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And don't go into it with an argumentative framework.
Right.
Go into it with the facts and why you believe what you believe, and then have an open dialogue. But that's what's going to make a difference in this country. It was a very close election. We lost,
Yeah.
but it was a 1.5%. If every person changes one person, that's a huge difference.
And not just change that person, but bring them to the polls, make sure they're registered to vote, and they actually show up to vote.
Absolutely. That's being an American citizen.
Yes, it is. Any final thoughts that you would just like to get out to America?
I'm so inspired when I'm on the road, when I get out of Washington, when I see people coming, tough jobs. When someone came, her child was in NICU and then survived, now is a home care nurse for the child. But she said, I have to be here, even though I'm juggling work and juggling my kid, because I don't want other people to be losing Medicaid. I see how much people are sacrificing to be citizens. And I say, thank you. That's what's going to move people. That's what's going to move this country. It's the spirit of active participation, and we need it. We need it at this moment.